Hello, and welcome to Breast Cancer Conversations, a podcast brought to you by SurvivingBreastCancer.org. I am Laura Carfing, breast cancer survivor and founder of SurvivingBreastCancer.org, a nonprofit organization providing community, education, and resources to empower those diagnosed with breast cancer and their caregivers from day one and beyond. Hello, everyone. I love starting my week off with you every single week. I know you hear that every week also if you're an avid listener, but I truly mean it. Putting this podcast together means the world to me, and I'm always so thrilled to connect with you. And I love to hear from you, so if you have any recommendations on future topics or would like to be a guest on our show, or even share your story on our blog and newsletter, please reach out. My email is laura@survivingbreastcancer.org. You can also follow us on social media. I'm on Twitter, SBC_ORG, and also on Instagram, SurvivingBreastCancer.org, all one word. In today's episode, I speak with Gloria. Gloria is diagnosed with lobular breast cancer. She's originally from Trinidad and currently resides in Canada. As a Reiki Master, Gloria believes in the power of healing, not just through the body's own power, but through the energy that radiates around us. Through deep reflection and introspection, Gloria has been able to confront trauma and now finds herself being able to live her best and fullest life. We talk about the power of therapeutic touch, the hand-heart connection, and Gloria's ultimate decision to no longer take letrozole, an aromatase inhibitor.
Here in North America, we very much focus on the physical, the allopathic method of healing, which is surgery, radiation, chemo, versus looking at the whole person, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, what's going on with us.
In this poetically beautiful podcast, welcome to the conversation. It's an opportunity to share information, knowledge, experiences, and really give voice to all of the types of breast cancer that are out there, various stages, various subcategories. And when I was reading your story, I noticed that you have lobular breast cancer, and that is an area that I would love to dive into.
Oh, for sure. My pleasure. I'm really happy I did that and reached out, and here we are today. So looking forward to it.
Your story really begins many years before your actual diagnosis. Your body was trying to tell you something.
Absolutely. And which is very interesting. And even though I have followed up and was the one to actually identify the so-called pinhead of a lump, and that's the thing with lobular breast cancer, is that it tends to show smaller than it really is. And so even though I did have an ultrasound on it in December 2018, it showed fine. My mammogram July 2019 showed nothing. But lobular cancer, breast cancer is like that. It does not present itself. Ultrasounds don't tend to pick it up because of the way it forms, because it's coming from the lobes of the breast, which is the milk-producing glands, versus ductal, which is the glands, which is really the ducts that take the breast milk from the lobes to the nipple, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so only 10%, as you said, Laura, I think it's just about 10% that experiences lobular breast cancer. And it also seems, based on the research that I've done, that it's mostly older women. And I think that is because of having gone through menopause. It tends to be, in a lot of cases, estrogen positive. And I think that has to do with things like diet and exercise and stress and everything all coming together in our body, to make that ideal soup, which it sounds like what occurs for any kind of cancer to occur, right?
Exactly. That seems to be a theme I hear time and time again. And I don't know if it's just in North America where we are just workaholics and we like to take on so much. We're overachievers, we're moms, we have careers, we're taking on co-curricular, extracurricular, volunteer opportunities, and we really fill our plate. I hear time and time again, myself included, that I don't realize how stressed out I was until cancer forced me to stop and literally cancel everything that I had going on for the next couple of months.
Exactly, exactly. And it's so well said, because it causes all of us with such a diagnosis to really just stop and take an inventory of our whole life wheel, and look at all the responsibilities that we carry in that life wheel. And so, for me, it's like so many various experiences. And I think one of the beautiful thing about this healing journey through Wellspring is really allowing us to look at ourselves, take the time as we go into meditation to really ask ourselves the big question, even just to record things like your lifeline and the various losses, whether that is the loss of a loved one through death, or the loss of a relationship through marriage or divorce, as the case may be, loss of jobs. And when you look at all those things, you realize, well, and then you add the complexity of the dynamic of just living.
Yeah.
Right? Produces an added stressor. And I don't think we understand how stress affects us.
We don't.
So the way I look at it now is I have converted my whole life to say I now occupy 1 to 10 on my to-do list. Yes, eating healthy is a change, exercising daily, just going for walks in nature and breathing the fresh air and being hugged by the forest,
Oh, I love
is
that.
it, yeah, it's so wonderful um, to walk alongside a stream and to just take the moment to observe, the various animal life that presents themselves to communicate with us, right? So some of my favorites, herons and turtles and and all sorts of winged birds.
Absolutely. And so I live in Boston and, I'm in this, condensed city urban life. And I love going up to, we go to northern New Hampshire, we go to Maine, Vermont, to be in nature by the ocean, by the water, the streams, the mountains. And to me, that is like rejuvenating. It allows me and gives me the energy then on weekends to go and escape in nature and then come back into the city dwelling and, go through the day job and the hustle and bustle. But it's so important to connect with earth, to connect with nature, and whatever that is, whether it's the water, the mountains, the fresh air, to find that solitude and an experience.
Absolutely. Because, the thing for me is, if someone had said to me just back in December 2020, like I would go walking by myself in nature on a daily basis, and I would say, most probably not. And now I crave my daily walk by myself, because
Oh,
I use it
beautiful.
as a opportunity to commune with nature, but also to commune with myself. So I find like I love just walking and chanting in nature.
So tell me a little bit about your life prior to your diagnosis.
Well, I have had, what can I say? Spending 40 odd years in the corporate world, mostly in IT, software, sales for some of the largest corporations you can think of, like IBM,
Mm-hmm.
for instance. So very, hectic, fast pace. And then I think just never really handling some of the losses that occurred in my life at an early age. So one that came up for me recently as I went through this course, actually, when I say recently, earlier this year, was the fact that I lost one of my very close brothers when I was only 15.
Mm.
And he was just, 4 years older than me, but very close, because I was in grade 11, grade 12, actually, at the time, doing what we call, I'm originally from Trinidad in the Caribbean. We followed at that point in time, we followed the British system of education. So preparing for O levels, and I was in the science stream, and my brother would be the one to explain me physics and add math and chemistry. And unfortunately, he was in a motorbike
Oh
accident
my
and
gosh.
passed on. And I I don't think I ever understood what it meant to grieve. Because I think coming from Trinidad in the area that we lived, first off in my high school, I really don't think my peers in high school even knew that I lost a brother because we came from different parts of the island. So I think, other than maybe 4 or 5 girls from the village that I was born and grew up in, um, attended that high school.
Mm.
Funny enough, it was run by Canadian missionaries. So,
Wow. Okay.
yeah, so which is so interesting, right? But not being able to really grieve that and then lose my mom. I think she just barely stayed alive until I was 24. So 9 years later, losing her, you pretty much have to wake up and be an adult very quickly. These things affect us in many, many ways. And until we have the opportunity to take the time, I think, to really look and see, how did this affect me? And have I grieved? Did I really, go through that process of grieving?
It's so important to allow yourself that time and know that there's not really an end either. I believe that grieving is a process. Now, I understand also that you enjoy spending a lot of time out in nature.
We live not in the city, so we live in the country, and they're lovely, lovely trails. So I was walking a day and saw this beautiful red cardinal, and I didn't know what I was feeling or why, but I remember learning somewhere along my path that a red cardinal is normally like a loved one just visiting. And I got this flash of my brother. I found myself just in total tears. These are the kind of experiences, I think, until we give ourselves the time and to really be honest with, the way I look at it, Laura, is me, myself, and I, nobody else, right? All three of us, call it, even if you think of it as the body, mind, spirit,
Mm-hmm.
because I do believe there are things that affect us on the physical level that has an impact on the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual.
I completely agree. Now, you've been involved in a lot of healing, personal healing, going through workshops, various modules. Can you tell me about the healing process for you and how you're doing? Not just with all of the losses you just described, but also with your breast cancer diagnosis.
For me, as I go through my healing journey, there's one that really sticks out for me, and that is, the growing up, we always heard, and it's somewhere in the back of my head that says, blood is thicker than water.
Mm.
And for me, that has not been my personal experience with my family of origin, especially my siblings. It has now allowed me to sit with that and ask myself, what do I believe family to be? And to me, family could be anyone. It's all of humanity. That is one aha moment. The other is, what would my choice be if something should occur with any one of my siblings? I had to really sit with that for some time, because you have to, in my case, I had to let go that disappointment, let go of the expectation, and really ask myself, who am I?
Which is scary. It's scary sometimes to confront who you are and really look in the mirror and do some of that deep healing internally that will bubble up emotions that you might not be expecting to have bubble up.
Absolutely. And I think every day, if we spend time with ourselves, just in the silence, in those moments, we learn more about ourselves. And then we can make conscious, informed choices as to who do we want to be. In that process, I look at myself and I say, wow, I am loving, I'm kind, I'm compassionate. I'm able to discern, is something from the ego or is it from source? Therefore, I can make informed choices. And so my informed choice around this myth is to change that to reframe or redefine what family is to me. And then, in addition to that, to say, what is the choice I'm going to make should some of my sibling have, let's say maybe a health issue or something like that. And I've decided that this is who I am. So I'll respond the same way that I always did, but with boundaries.
Have you had other aha moments as you're experiencing the journey of healing?
Another aha moment for me in this process is one, reframing the thinking, but also choosing what are healthy boundaries for me. So, case in point was 2007, I think it was, when my dad had a stroke. For me, I felt the connection, the um, decision to really, this occurred at the airport in Trinidad. And so both my son and I went down to Trinidad I had just changed jobs and I decided I had about a week to spend in Trinidad, but I needed to bring my dad back up to Canada. And, we had to literally lift him on the airplane and, you know, 12 years that I had with him, after that, he was in the hospital here in Canada for like 46 days because his stroke was affected his left side. He couldn't eat, he couldn't speak, he had no movement. The phenomenal healthcare team that was involved in his healing um, really made a difference. And of course, his will and his desire to live. And so those are lessons for me that now I could recall and implement in my own healing. It's interesting that the last 2 years, as you read from my story, that we lost him just after his 94th birthday. But that was another experience. He literally taught me conscious dying. So I had the opportunity to spend 4 days with him at our local hospice. In those 4 days, I could see the symbolism of everything from the choice of his golf shirts that the nurses choose to put on, to his last rites, to his communication, to learning therapeutic touch, which was something I never even heard about until hospice, even though I was trained and I am trained in Reiki. So even as a Reiki master, I was never exposed to therapeutic touch. The volunteer, she taught me what they call the hand to heart connection when someone is in the process of dying.
Can you explain to me what therapeutic touch is and this relationship between hand and heart?
Yeah, so therapeutic touch actually was developed by the head of nursing. I think it's New York State, Upper New York State. And it is evidence-based research. So a lot of the nursing schools actually teach therapeutic touch. And the way I would explain therapeutic touch is recognizing that we all energy. So I think once we can get our heads around the fact that we all energy, whether it's animate or inanimate, there are many levels to our energetic field. So there's the physical body, there's the emotional, there's the mental, and the spiritual. some people are able to see or feel those feels. It's really about bringing with intention. So it's going into that heart space and holding that intention of opening an energetic portal for someone who is dealing with any kind of imbalance in the energy field to bring balance, order, and harmony back to their energy field. But it's up to the person that is the recipient to then take that opening or that portal and make that choice, right? So I think if it's something that I have learned through this whole process, choosing, but choosing wisely, and being empowered in your choice so that that internal guidance is very much present.
Almost allowing yourself to be open up to the signs and energy that the universe is giving you. As you were mentioning, like with your experience walking and seeing the red cardinal, and then, it's easy to be looking down at your phone or looking at something else, or, talking with a friend and not really taking in your surroundings. So it's really allowing yourself to be open to these signs and then, interpreting them and having that connection. As I'm learning myself about, energy healing and, practicing different techniques in terms of opening up chakras and just being more attuned with my own healing journey, I was pouring coffee this morning, and you know how sometimes like when you pour the coffee, they make designs like in your cup.
Yes.
And so
got a heart.
I got a heart. Yes.
Isn't that funny? I knew it before.
How did you know? Oh my gosh. Yes, that's exactly what happened. And I'm thinking, okay, today is like going to be a day where I'm going to make connections. I'm going to move forward with compassion and empathy and love. And, it's just one of those little things where I could have just poured the coffee, drank the cup, etc. But really taking that moment to pause and be present, as you were mentioning.
Yeah. And isn't that really, I think this whole journey, if it's one thing I so believe, is it's like coming to a place of self-love and self-compassion that has really nothing to do with anything else. Absolutely. And I think that is, I know in some cultures, death is spoken of. People have seen a dead body. I think here in North America, we make it so clinical, maybe other than the indigenous peoples of North America, that most people go through life and may have never had that experience.
True.
And to be able to sit with someone, as I was fortunate to sit with my dad for 4 days and be like his death doula, really is what it is. And to be aware, I found that because I had that opportunity, the grieving was a total different process.
Tell me about that. How would you describe its differences?
I have no unfinished business.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Right? Whatever I needed to say to him, just to be with him. So I think that is the biggest gift.
Yeah.
Is not having any unfinished business with the person.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I was speaking with another dear friend who was on the podcast, and she lost her husband to a terminal illness, and she described those last days as probably one of the most intimate moments of their relationship, and how beautiful that was to be able to experience, being with your loved one as they're passing, actively passing.
Yes, absolutely. And you talk about earlier the hand to heart connection. So the volunteer at hospice taught me it's like you rest their hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
So their hand so it's their heart, so it's left to left.
Okay.
And you form, it's that infinity symbol, right? When you do that, you form that infinite heart connection.
Okay.
And you just hold it as long as you so choose. And so the moment she taught us that, whether it was myself or my son or my partner sitting with my dad, we tried to do it as much as we could um, at different times during those 4 days. And I think it was a very peaceful process for him. It wasn't agitated. It wasn't um, any major gasping or gnashing of teeth or anything like that. It was just such a beautiful, and it's almost because I was there with him for those 4 days, 24 hours in his room, that you go through those moments where you can see um, the process. So you know that hearing is most probably one of the last things to go. So you always want to whisper and let them know it's okay. My dad was Hindu, so he practiced Hinduism. And we had his last rites the Monday before he transitioned. And it's almost as though everything in the universe has a specific rhythm or a divine matrix, call it, again, whatever you will, because we had that for him the Monday, and he transitioned, exactly 3 days later. And it was like halfway between the time, like we did his last rites from 6:30 to 7, and he transitioned 6:45 3 days later. And there were things like a robin sitting on the roof across the laneway that I could see from his room. And my dad, though, interesting enough, this year would be 40 years since my mom has transitioned. My parents would come up to from Trinidad to Canada almost every year because all my siblings are scattered over North America. My mom, 40 years ago, said no, she wasn't coming. And my dad was in the Rockies. One of my brothers live in Calgary. And he was only there for like 3 days and had to turn around to come back to Trinidad to attend her funeral.
Oh, wow.
And do you know, 2 years ago, after we celebrated his 94th birthday, my partner and I, we were in the Rockies on vacation when he fell ill. We returned halfway from our trip. Where was I? So, is this something that was meant to be? It's such a bigger question. I have no doubt in my mind um, that my mom was there to greet him and help him along his path.
And so, how has this healing that we're describing and talking about today, and the work that you're doing with Wellsprings in terms of the courses that you're taking, how has that helped you with your own personal journey with breast cancer?
I feel like I'm truly living my best life every single day.
I love that.
And yeah, and to be, but it's not, when I say my best life every single day, it's a sense of contentment. It's a sense of being comfortable with me. It's a sense of relieving expectations of myself and anyone else.
I'm so glad you defined that because, sometimes, and I don't know how active you are on social media, but I would say on social media, we see a lot of these doctored photos, everyone forcing the smile, everyone pretending that life is perfect and that they're living their best life and they have the vacations. And, you see on social media what they want to choose to present versus what I hear you describing is, I would say, attuned to understanding what it means to be at peace with yourself.
If I can just share with everybody on this journey, to sit in the silence and really discern, because we all have that ability to discern, is this something, whether it's a decision around uh, surgery or diet or medication, to the other extreme, which could be, hands-on healing.
Exactly.
um, I, I think both spectrums play such an important role in our lives. So it's not separate from, and it's not one path only, but it's really recognizing the whole person and really looking at ourselves on all levels. So physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, but also looking at it from a full life wheel,
Yes.
right? Because, like you and I were talking about, we are so busy. You asked me to tell you a little bit about myself, being a full time professional, having kids, and now having grandkids, and going through a separation and a divorce and that whole journey by itself requires a total introspection because it also has beliefs and limiting beliefs, right? Because somewhere along the line, depending on our religion, we may have a belief that we only have one partner, and that may not necessarily be our belief.
You tell in your story how you decided no longer to take letrozole, one of the aromatase inhibitors, because of one, all of the terrible side effects.
Yeah, so I think for me, as I go into my silence and my meditation on a daily basis, if something, so because the breast cancer tumor was grade one, sorry, but stage two. So the difference is stage is based on size, but grade is based on the percentage of abnormal cells within the tumor. So, grade one tumor in my case specifically was less than 10%. So, and lobular breast cancer tend to be slow growing. And I had gone through, very, very fortunate with my medical team and a fantastic surgeon who requested all the tests to ascertain prior to surgery or presenting a choice around surgery to me as to was this anywhere else in my body. So, um, so knowing that and being an active participant and reading and researching, once the lumpectomy occurred and I got the pathology of the lumpectomy that indicated it was stage two, grade one, and then estrogen, progesterone, 90 to 100% driven. But going back for my CT scan, I observed that there was indications of a non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So, and then my doctor had huge, if you want to say, series of blood work around the progression or non-progression of a non-alcoholic fatty liver. And so knowing what I can do to address that, because I think for me, that's my root cause of why this imbalance occurred. That combined with stress, I think, are most probably two of the main factors. So, not eating healthy, not exercising, being postmenopausal, we have to take care of ourselves in a total different way than when we produce enough estrogen. But the thing with estrogen and being postmenopausal, which is something that I learned as well, is that it doesn't mean that we're not producing estrogen. It means that, in my case, which is why I think the stress, because the adrenals produce cortisol that gets converted to estrogen. If I don't address the non-alcoholic fatty liver, which takes about 3 years, thankful and grateful that it's the one organ, if you take care of it, can rejuvenate. And having the test done that indicate there isn't any probability of it progressing to be cirrhosis of the liver or anything like that, I've chosen to change the way I eat more vegetables, do intermittent fasting. So I have, maybe 80% of my plate is vegetables and 20% protein. And just exercise and just even walking, being more active. And that combined with the fact that my medical oncologist did the oncotype test on the tumor. So, as you're most probably aware, the only time they can do an oncotype test is post, whether it's biopsy or surgery, in this case, a lumpectomy, where they can look at the tumor and give some indicators as to what's the probability of recurrence. So again, in my case, understanding the ONCO scores, it's called, mine was just 11, which meant for them to even consider recommending chemo based on age, I would have had to have a score of over 26.
So you were really low on the oncotype.
Yeah, so that was one. The oncotype, the onco score also gives an indicator, because there's another part of it that shows if you went on the aromatase inhibitor for 5 years, how does that affect your longevity or non-recurrence of breast cancer?
Mm-hmm.
And again, in my case, it was taking me from the average of, I think it's now 1 in 8, I believe, of women can get breast cancer,
mm-hmm.
to 1 in 33. Everybody's so unique.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Right? And so my body, I listened to my body. My body was saying, just after 2 months of taking this little tiny pill, it's like, if it fell on the floor, you can't even find it, right?
I'm on letrozole too, so I completely understand.
Right. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. So I had all 3 side effects. I went through menopause, Laura, without any night sweat, hot flashes, none of those things. And something triggered in my body with letrozole that I have night sweats, I have hot flashes. The worst, though, was the joint pain in my hands.
Yep.
To the point where I would get up the wee hours of the morning and I can't go to sleep, because if I lie down, it's worse. So I would try to move, and slowly it would ease, but it just felt, I don't know, like I imagine how an arthritic set of fingers feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so after the first month, I thought, okay, Gloria, try it for a month. I called my medical oncologist, being the wonderful person that he is, suggested, instead of taking it at night, let's try it in the morning.
Which is so funny, because I hear a lot of women say, I take it at night so I can sleep through the symptoms. But in your case, it was waking you up. It was that bad.
It was waking me up in my REM sleep from 2 to 7.
Yeah.
Right? that's the time when I need my baby sleep. I need to rest like a baby, right?
So maybe taking it in the morning when you're active and walking and moving would mitigate some of the symptoms.
It did not. It was like clockwork, Laura. The second month was the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So then he said, why don't we just stop after 2 months, see when the side effects are gone, and then we would try the next aromatase inhibitor. In my case, he suggested exemestane because letrozole and anastrozole are built the same way. So try exemestane. Well, I'm still having night sweats and hot flashes.
Yeah.
And I've made enough changes that I walk a path of well-being, and I know that where my head and my heart are connected with such intense passion on it, that I know I'm healthy.
So you chose to forego the aromatase inhibitors. You are trusting your intuition and your body. And like you were saying, and how we discussed for this podcast, all of the amazing changes that you've made with exercise and diet, and then just being attuned to healing and Reiki and the therapeutic touch. So it's beautiful. I'm so excited for you. And I feel like this is one of many conversations. I feel like we're just scratching the surface on a number of topics that I would love to invite you back for future conversation. And then
absolutely.
Thank you. And then I want to ask, in terms of closing words and remarks, is there anything that you would like to highlight for our listeners? Any words of encouragement or advice to those listening?
Absolutely. I think what I would suggest to all of us is to be an active participant in our well-being. The second is do our research, be informed. And third is trust that instinct, gut instinct, internal guidance, whether we do that through prayer, through meditation, through walking in nature, I think they all have the same effect. And know that healing is possible. We all have all the tools, including allopathic medicine, don't get me wrong. But that combined with a holistic approach to heal ourselves. I do believe we are multidimensional beings of light. We just energy. And as we walk that path of really understanding who we are, it's looking at the whole person. And for me, to be able to go and grieve losses that occurred, 40 something years ago, right? It's just, yes. And it just tells you where these things can reside in our beingness that we haven't, uncovered through our own work, through our own introspection, to look at ourselves. And it's a choice, because we can choose differently. We can pretend that it's not part of who we are, or we can say, no, this is something that is really important. Get into that place of self-love and self-compassion, because I really do believe once we are able to truly get to that place, that we are then being the best that we can be in the moment.
I love that. Thank you, Gloria. Thank you for taking the time to share your story with us and being a guest on our podcast. And I can see we've been smiling for the last hour.
Yes, which is awesome. Well, my pleasure, my honor. Truly, if there's anything I can do to help anyone else, I'm an open book, willing to share.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gloria. And thank you all for listening and tuning in week after week here on Breast Cancer Conversations. Please be mindful that all of our content and information is for educational purposes only and is never a substitute for medical advice. If you want to hang out, again, please check out survivingbreastcancer.org/events, where you can RSVP to our Thursday Night Thrivers weekly meetup, our Movement Monday classes, workshops, seminars, and so much more. We can also continue the dialogue online via social media. Our Instagram handle is survivingbreastcancer.org, all one word, and you can follow us on Twitter at SBC_ORG. Until next time, keep on thriving.